All right, and joining us today is a man with many titles. He's a former NHL player. He's the Leafs single-season goal-scoring record holder, and now he is an author as well too, with the book Catch 22. Joining us today, we've got Rick Vaive. Rick, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. A little bit tired. Didn't was up late last night watching a movie, so a little tired today, but I'm feeling good.
Yeah, yeah. You've been keeping busy during lockdown and everything there, or what have you been occupying your time with these days?
Yeah, I mean, well, right now doing a lot of this for the book and over the past few weeks and that sort of thing. Prior to that, I played a lot of golf this summer. I bet you I played all but 5 days after the course opened in May. so,
Oh, wow.
so I
Yeah.
played a lot of golf. You know what? It's other than that, just a little bit of watching TV and stuff like that. I mean, there's not a whole lot to do, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. I think the golf industry certainly wasn't complaining about
No,
the summer that they had there. Other businesses definitely hurting for sure, but they're
yeah.
definitely not one of them. So, I mean, you've been retired for a few years now, but what made now seem like the time that I want to write a book? Now's the time to tell my story.
Well, I think I've been asked many times about writing books, and I've always said the only guy I'm going to write it with is Scott Morrison,
Hmm.
because I know Scott back from the '80s, and I've done a lot of things that he was at over the last dozen years or more, and we've actually become good friends, and I trust Scott, so I said he's the only guy I'm going to write it with. But I think my reason for doing it now is that I'm in a good place right now. I feel great. I've got a 15-month-old grandson, my first grandchild, and it's pretty cool. And yeah, I'm just in a good place, and I just thought, you know what? I think now's the time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you talk pretty openly in this book as well too about some of the struggles you've had, not only on the ice but off the ice as well. Was it in sort of a way a cathartic experience to finally get your version of events and sort of your story out there to the public?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that was one of the other criteria, or whatever you want to call it, about writing a book, was that I wasn't going to hold anything back, and that was, I wouldn't write something if we were going to put fluff in it and just make it sound like everything's great. And I told Scotty that right from the beginning. I said this is going to be everything, and that was the only way I was going to write a book. So I wanted everybody to know that, although we're athletes and we play at the highest level in a certain sport, we're human.
Yeah.
And, we have lives, we have children, we have wives, and um, we have hurdles and stuff to get over throughout our lives as far as our career and off the ice as well. So that was one of the big reasons why I wanted to make sure that I didn't kind of keep anything out.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think that's something that maybe in today's super hyper connected day and age there, people tend to forget that, these athletes are people outside of the rink as well too, and they tend to ignore maybe some of the struggles that are going on outside of the ice?
I think so for sure. I mean, I even in my era, you're looking back to the '80s or late '70s, '80s, and early '90s. I think a lot of people have watched us. I think they're of the belief that, oh, he played in the NHL for 13 years. His life must have been perfect from the beginning, and now he's a millionaire with not even close to that. so, um, and so I wanted to make sure that this told the real story, that hey, this is far from the truth, and this is what can happen, even though you're an athlete in the NHL or NFL or NBA, whatever it might be. We're normal.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, if we take it all the way sort of back to the beginning of your hockey journey there, you made a sort of unique decision at the time, at least, to forego another year of junior, and you actually made the jump right to the WHA. Do you think that experience of playing against grown men sort of a year earlier than some of your counterparts were really helped prepare you for that NHL journey?
Well, yeah, I think it did in a lot of ways, but it did in a way too, and I'll explain that. And that, yeah, playing against these guys probably made me a better player. Playing against better players, men, bigger, stronger guys than I was. I mean, when I went there, I was like about a buck 70, something like that. So
Yeah.
I was a skinny little kid that liked to push back, and so they took care of that. I think they knocked the pushback out of me a little bit, but I think it hurt me in the next year coming into Vancouver. I think I thought that perhaps I think I took it too lightly, figuring that the WHA is pretty damn good. It's almost as good as the NHL, and I should be fine. I should be okay. And I think that hurt me because the NHL was far better than the WHA, and especially with all the WHA players now in the NHL.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think so. It helped me, and it hurt me on that regard. I think.
Yeah, bit of a double-edged sword then.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, you ended up actually getting traded in your rookie season from Vancouver to Toronto there. What was that experience like, getting shipped clear across the country before you'd even really gotten a chance to settle in?
Well, it was quite a shock,
Yeah.
I will say. Something that when you're the fifth overall pick, you certainly don't expect that you're going to be moved in your rookie season.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it was kind of it turned out to be a blessing, really, for me. I wasn't playing in Vancouver. Billy and I were both sitting in the stands,
Mhm.
and I don't know. Harry was kind of running things. Jake Milford, our general manager, was sick, so Harry kind of took over. And I don't know. Harry didn't really feel too good about Billy and I, so what the trade happened, and then I was worried anyway. I don't know how Billy felt, but I'm thinking, well, damn, like how long am I going to play in this league? Got traded already, and but as soon as we got to Toronto, and sat down with Punch and Imlach, and he said, you know what, you guys are going to get an opportunity. You're going to play a ton. Just go out and do your job.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they held up their end of the bargain, and the rest was up to us, which we took advantage of that, and went out and performed extremely well.
Yeah. Yeah. So now with the sort of benefit of time and being able to look back on it all, you got traded a few times throughout your career. With hindsight being 2020 now, would you say that it was maybe tougher for you at the beginning when you got traded the first time as young, inexperienced, didn't really know what being traded sort of felt like? Or do you think it was actually tougher towards the end of your career when you had things like, family and kids and uprooting them and all that to sort of deal with? Was it difficult no matter what?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's difficult regardless, really.
Yeah.
I mean, because the first thing that comes into your mind is that they don't want me.
Hmm.
Then you got to start kind of realizing and trying to rationalize that it's not that they don't want you; it's that these guys here over here really want
Yeah.
you. So you try to tell yourself that, you try to convince yourself that that's why the trade took place. But I would say it's probably easier. I would say at the beginning,
Hmm.
because, like you said, later on you have kids, and you look at the trade from Chicago to Buffalo.
Hmm.
I was traded the day after Christmas
Yeah.
at 10:30 in the morning, and I had to catch a 1 o'clock flight. My in-laws were visiting for the holidays. My wife, we had a 2-year-old. She was pregnant, and then I don't see them until February 4th,
Yeah.
and I got to leave at 1 o'clock that day. So, I mean, I know it's a heck of a lot different today. I mean, guys have a little bit more time to get to the city that they get traded to, and their wives are kind of taken care of and showing around, and here's where everybody lives, here's the schools and whatnot. But yeah, I would say latter was much more difficult than the early one because all I had was my car and my clothes, and just called my brother and said, "Can you get one of your buddies and fly to Vancouver and pick up my car and drive it to Toronto?" It was easy.
Yeah.
As you get older, and plus, the other part is, you've been with the team for 7+ years,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden you're taken out of that.
Yeah.
And that was devastating, really, more so than the first one.
Yeah.
And you've already formed a lot of great relationships. You're playing for an iconic team that with a bundle of history, and then all of a sudden you're gone. And it was that one was probably more difficult than any of them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you just sort of hit the nail on the head there as far as, an iconic team, lots of history there with the Maple Leafs. You go from the West Coast to pretty much the epicenter of hockey media in
Yeah.
Toronto there, right? Do you remember what was sort of going through your head the first time you put on that Leafs jersey and stepped out there for a hockey night in Canada, televised game, knowing that there's now millions of eyeballs watching you around the country?
Um, I probably can't remember exactly how I felt, but I know that it was kind of one of those like wow
Yeah.
moments, like in your life where you grew up watching this on television, and then all of a sudden you look down and you go, and then you walk out on the ice and you look around Maple Leaf Gardens, and it's like wow, like how did I get here? It's like pinch, you got to pinch yourself because it's like a dream,
Yeah.
and because growing up, I mean, you watch it and yeah, you dream about it, but do you really ever think you're going to get there? I'm not sure. That's one of the things that goes through your mind. Yeah, geez, I'd love to play for the Montreal Canadiens and the Toronto Maple Leafs, and well, Toronto was my team, and my father was a Canadiens fan because he was from Gatineau.
Hmm.
That was kind of difficult because I had to pretend I wasn't a Leaf fan when the Canadians were playing the Leafs. But yeah, I would say it's. I guess to sum it up, it's a wow thing. Like you can't believe it
Yeah.
that it's happening.
Yeah, yeah. And, obviously being with a storied franchise, lots of rivalries over the years, lots of great battles, both in the regular season and the playoffs there. And though you were never known as a quote unquote enforcer during your days, you certainly weren't afraid to, drop the gloves and go to the dirty places and, muck it up during your time as well, too, right? So looking back on it, does any one or two players sort of stand out over your years as the guy that you least liked getting into a scrum with, or maybe thought twice about accepting the challenge when you were on the ice there?
No, not really.
Yeah.
I know that kind of it sounds maybe to people a little bit arrogant or what have you because there was a lot of tough guys in the league. Um, but I learned a lesson from John Brophy in Birmingham, and I think it was valuable going into the NHL. Was that we the year before I got to Birmingham, they had a real tough team. They beat the crap out of everybody in the league, and then the next year they got rid of everybody, and
Mhm.
then I think it was payback time for the other teams. And now you bring in six, 8, 19 year olds,
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh my goodness. And so we had Dave Hansen was there, and Brof called me in one day and he said, we got Dave. He can kind of take care of some things, but he can't take care of everything.
Yeah.
And he said, if you don't push back and you don't let them know that you're not going anywhere, they're going to eventually run you out of the league. And that means going forward too, he said.
Hmm.
And I kind of took that to heart. I mean, I was that kind of a person anyway. I didn't like to get pushed around, and I didn't take too kindly to it.
Hmm.
Uh, Growing up, I mean, I got bullied in schoolyards, and because I wasn't very big,
Hmm.
and I was like the star of the hockey team in town and everything else. And anyway, I had to fight a little bit back then too, so I wasn't afraid to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, in your book, you mentioned that, when you became captain of the Leafs there, it wasn't so much that they asked, hey, do you want to be captain? You were kind of more so told that you're going to be captain there. So, what was the first emotion you felt when you found out that you would be getting to see? Was it pride? Was it nerves? Was it confusion? What was sort of going through your head when you first found out?
It was kind of everything. A lot of apprehension, a lot of pride, a lot of, the thing was, is if we had sat down and whether it was Harold or whoever asked me and said, look, you know, we know you're young,
Hmm.
but we think you're ready, and we'll give you all the help you need, and we'd love for you to be the captain of the Maple Leafs. That would have been the ultimate. But it was just Harold Ballard, just basically in passing, stopping and saying, "Oh, you're the captain," and I'm like, "Okay, I know I'm not quite ready yet. I
Yeah.
need another year. I might need another 2 years in order to really be ready to guide the ship, so to speak." Um, but I also knew that if I declined, I'm pretty sure Harold would have traded me.
Hmm.
Excuse me, and I wasn't ready for that. I was already traded once, and I didn't want it to happen again. I wanted to stay in Toronto. I loved it there, and so that was probably one of many catch-22 situations I
Yeah.
found myself in throughout my life and my career, and so I said yes, and yeah, I was very proud of it. There's no question. I mean, who wouldn't be? And it's something you dreamed about your whole life, and but it was done in a way that kind of threw a little damper on it, and like I knew that if I didn't accept it, more than likely Harold was going to say, "Okay, get him out of here,"
Yeah.
trade him, and so. But luckily for me, Boreas sat right beside me in the room, and he had my back, and that helped a lot. And then, of course, within the next couple of years, we got a lot younger, and that made it a lot easier for me as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
What was more shocking then? What was it, the day that you got voluntold that you were the captain of the Leafs, or the day you got told that you were being traded from the Leafs?
probably the day I was told I was being traded, it was at a golf tournament for Telemedia Sports, who had the rights to the radio and whatever back then. So they held a tournament every year in September, early September, up at I can't remember what it was. I think it was Horseshoe Valley, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
And so we go up there, and we got the tournament that's going on and everything. And then I finish my round, and Bill Waters who was my agent, happened to be there. I think he had a cottage up near there. But anyway, he was at the tournament. He came over and told me I got traded.
Yeah.
And I had 3 days to go home, pack the car, and get to Chicago because camp started in 3 days.
Yeah.
And again, then I didn't see my family until later on in October. My wife had to sell the house, had to do everything herself, and then meet me in Chicago later on.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I got to buy a house. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
and we don't have phones back then where you can take pictures and
Yeah.
back and forth and talk to one another and so on. So it's kind of scary when you're buying a house when your wife is back in Toronto and you're in Chicago, and you got to buy a house that you think she's going to like.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I had to do that 3 times, and she loved every one of them. So,
Yeah. Well,
uh,
that's good. I was going to say there's no
oh,
virtual walkthroughs back in those
no,
days there. So
boy, I got lucky.
yeah, yeah. At least you guys are on the same page there for sure. So, I mean, you definitely enjoyed some of your most productive in terms of goals and points and whatnot seasons with the Leafs there. But you were also known as having one of the more oddly shaped sticks, heavy, thick. How many goals do you think you would have scored if you had have had a time machine and brought one of these carbon fiber sticks from today back to in the day there instead of the tree trunk that you were using?
Well, you know what? I mean, I can look at that and come up with a whole bunch of things, but when you think about some of the guys that played when I played, like Bossy and Lemieux, Gretzky, what if they all had those sticks too?
Yeah,
Like you can look at it from a lot of different perspectives, but I don't know. I mean, you can say what you want about the sticks or the equipment, but that's just the way it was. And, I mean, you have to live with it.
Yeah.
And times change, equipment changes, rules change. I mean, over the years, there's a lot of things have changed in the game. That was just the way it was then. But I mean, but that stick was pretty good for me because
Yeah. It
and
treated
the
you pretty
reason I
well.
went to it, the reason I went to it was because I was breaking sticks like crazy,
Yeah.
taking slop shots. And I said, hey guys, you got to make this stronger because I'm breaking them all the time and you got to make them stiffer. And the only way they could do that was make the shaft thicker.
Yeah.
And it was almost a square.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like a regular hockey stick. It was pretty much a square. And, but it worked.
Yeah.
And, everybody always kind of made fun of it or not really made fun of it, but I remember Gary Lehman one time picking it up and going like, I think it was at an alumni game and some guy came down to the glass with one and came into the room and he wanted me to sign it for him. And Gary grabbed it and he said, he's looking at it and he's passing it around. He said, can you believe that this guy scored 50 goals with this thing? I went, well, it worked. I mean, I
Yeah.
needed it stiffer and stronger, and that's what they did.
Yeah. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Right?
No,
Whatever
absolutely.
works.
Yeah.
So you had one of the more unique experiences in the sense that you played for two of the more let's call them colorful owners during the time that you were a player in Ballard and Wirtz there. So you know, fast forward to today, you've got the ability to look back on it, and you also had some experiences as a coach and all that, interacting with owners as well too. What is it that the good owners do that the quote unquote meddlesome or troublesome owners don't? Or is it the fact that they're so hands off and let their hockey ops people do it, and the ones that can't help themselves and meddle, they tend to get themselves in trouble? What are the ingredients that go into being a successful owner?
Well, I think the game has changed so much, and revenues have gone up in every sport exponentially over the years. That uh, I think the owners are finally realizing that maybe I better step aside and let the professionals do it, the
Hmm.
people that know what they're doing. There's very few owners that uh, there's not that many Jerry Joneses around and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
It's kind of like you say, they just sit back and they let the people they hire do their job. And then if they don't do their job properly, they fire them. And that's just kind of the way things go. That's like business. They run it like a business, I guess, more or less, more so than they did back in those days. And I think that's good for the game because it should be the people that know what they're doing as far as hockey goes, running the team.
Yeah, yeah. You,
I
you
can think of one other guy in hockey that maybe is a little meddlesome. I think he's up in your area, and
Well, I was gonna say there, if you've got a bat line that you've got a direct line to a certain owner in our neck of the woods here in Ottawa, there, you could probably give him a pointer or two of what.
well, I think he's probably the last dying breed of that sort of owner that kind of can't keep his hands off the pie, and it's unfortunate because they're doing a lot of great things. They've got a lot of really good young talent sitting there waiting to come up and play for the organization. And of course, they had a great draft this year. Um, Hopefully, maybe going forward, he'll kind of change and he'll let things because I think I see a lot of good things in the future for that franchise if he's able to step aside and let the people that know what they're doing take charge.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big if right there for sure. So, I mean, you mentioned in your book, and it's a great quote there, that when you've got a hot stick, the net just seems bigger, everything seems to go in. But if there was a kid that was listening to this right now who maybe is going through a slump or struggling to put the puck in the net, there, did you have any, whether it was a superstition or a technique or anything that you used during your playing days to try and be getting out of that slump, get out of that funk a little bit there?
Mm, no, not really. You know what? I know it sounds kind of funny. Uh, I relied on my wife a lot
Yeah.
because she watched every game. She was there every game, and she was able to tell me that when I started the game, whether or not I was going to have a good game. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously I didn't talk to her during the games, but um, and it was fun. One time, she said, if you don't get knocked on your rear end early in the game, you're not going to have a good game. You got to get into it early and so on. And you know, but which happened on most nights, but there was a few times where she said, you know, hey, you're not doing the things that you normally do. And of course, her brother played in the NHL for 10 years, Bob Stewart, before I did. Or well, we played against each other my first year. Um, but if I was going to give anybody any advice today, I would just, you know, well, first of all, now is a little different because they have all the iPads and you can watch all just your shifts and stuff like that. And I would sit down and watch my shifts and uh, really kind of look at yourself and say, am I doing everything I possibly can to score goals, or am I cheating a little bit, or if I'm am I taking a shortcut here and there? And if you're not, and the puck's just not going in, well, then just continue doing what you're doing. But if you notice that you're taking shortcuts, or you're not giving everything, then yeah, I think you got to change things. But so I guess it's looking in the mirror, I guess, so to speak. Although now you're looking at an iPad, which is quite a bit different than 1980 or 83 or 84. So things are much different, and the film, and you have access to so much more now, so you can look at a lot more. And I mean, if I sat down with a young player today, I could take the iPad, I could walk him through his shifts, and I could say one or the other. I could say, look, you know what? You're playing really well.
Mhm.
You're doing all the right things. Things just aren't going in right now, and that's not for you to worry. It'll happen. You just keep playing the way you're playing, and they have the ability to go through those things.
Yeah, yeah, sound advice. For years, the Leafs weren't maybe the greatest organization in terms of recognizing past players and honoring some of the contributions that some of their, alumni had made. And a lot of that seemed to change after their 100th anniversary season there. And they did start to bring some of the old players back into the fold, so to speak, there. Does it feel like your career's now sort of come full circle now that you're done playing and you're an ambassador for the team that you enjoyed some of your most successful years with?
Well, it feels pretty good. I mean, actually, it was like Steve Stavros kind of started that back in, I don't know, it was the late '80s or early '90s when he took over the team, bringing back Daryl and a couple other guys. But really, the whole thing started when Brendan Shanahan came back, and
Hmm.
he recognized the history of the franchise was so important, and he
Hmm.
wanted the alumni to be heavily involved in MLSE's corporate partners. And I mean, he took two suites on the 200 level right behind the visitors net and turned it into one big one for our alumni.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's like the food in there is incredible. The box itself or the suite is incredible. And it's so nice to be an alumni and be able to go down there on any given night and hang out with some of the guys and meet some of the corporate partners of our alumni who, you know, buy tickets or have four tickets and give money to the so we can maintain the suite.
Hmm.
And but more than that, it's just it's fun to go down there, meet up with your old buddies, and have some fun. And Brendan has a lot to do with that. When he came in, he changed everything, and he still is. He's still changing things and making things better for everybody.
Hmm. Hmm. So for those that haven't heard of your book, haven't, maybe aren't familiar with your story, what can people expect if they go out and pick up a copy of your book for Christmas there?
I think the first thing is honesty. I think I mean, I don't hold back anything. I've had some rough times in my life. I've had some, very, very big challenges in my life, and I don't shy away from them.
Mm,
I tell everybody exactly what I went through and how I got through it, uh, who helped me get through it, so on and so forth. I don't hold anything back, and I think that's probably the biggest thing that I'd like people to take away from it, and also that we're not perfect. Just
mm,
because we play in the NHL or the NBA or whatever it might be, we're not perfect. We have problems. We're human beings, and I think this probably might let everybody know that that's probably the truth and the norm with athletes is that we're not uh, superheroes. We're individual human beings that just happen to be good enough to play at the highest level of a certain sport.
mhm, mhm. Well, the book is Catch 22, and author is Rick Vaive and Scott Morrison. It's a fantastic book. Go out and pick it up, whether you're a Leafs fan, hockey fan, or just sports fan in general. It was a great read. I devoured it in about a week there. So go out and pick it up today. It makes a great Christmas present. Rick, thank you so much for joining us today. We wish you all the best. And, like we said, hopefully people go out and pick this up because it's a really, really great read.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm pretty proud of the job that Scotty did putting it all together, and and well, both of us, and then I mean, there was a lot of other things we had to do. My sister was involved because she remembered the dates, which I couldn't remember, which is not surprising, and my wife was involved with a lot of things that I couldn't recall or couldn't remember exactly how things happened, and she was able to fill the blanks in, and so was my sister. So a lot of help from them. Scotty did an unbelievable job, and uh, it was a lot. It was a blast. It really was.
Yeah, real team effort to put it together.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.